we're going to throw it open. We've got a roving mic going around the room, so please put up your hands in the room for questions. And we've got some questions coming in, which I can see on the screen here. Maybe first one for the group is really people want to know what is the key to entrepreneurial success. Maybe Lara, would you like to start?
I don't think there's any one key. I think I don't know much about this. I've only done it once, but I think being frugal is a huge part of the game. I think Vernon said absolutely the right thing. I think if you have the right values and you establish those values then you have the makings of something brilliant. As long as you live, breathe and die by those things, even if you're talking to yourself in the early days, I would suggest, because I did a lot of that myself. You're going to. I think there has to be a bit of a reality check about how tough enterprise is. It's very lonely. I think more people need to share the fact that they have failures. And I actually also think that you have to realise that there are some fantastic resources, and albeit I was actually doing this networking thing in the library today. I started my business in a library in Bedfordshire, where I used to go and write out my sales prospects on a Saturday and Sunday. So on a Monday I had prospects to sell to, and we didn't have the internet as was, and we're very lucky today how much easier the volume of resource is. And then the other thing is I think you have to have humility and a very thick skin. You've got to keep asking questions, keep falling down, keep learning, keep making mistakes, and keep getting up. And you'd be amazed at what you learn in the process about just keeping going, because it doesn't go smoothly all of the time by any shape of the imagination. And everybody I know who's had the fortune to sell a business can tell you some pretty sad war stories, and they'll talk to you about misery days. So I think it's a jack of all trades, and then I also think finally it's being a master of one and then employing with brilliance those around you, because without those around you, you will not succeed.
Thanks. I mean, that's an interesting point about the dark days as well. And one thing I find very difficult in my job, I mean, people often think journalists are cynical beasts, but we do, often people want to hear about the difficult stuff as well, and that often is the seed to the greatest successes. I mean, Vernon, maybe you could talk about this issue of success, and maybe also what's been the most difficult or darkest moment for you.
Yeah, and John, and we see that not only from what we've done, but we make loans to hundreds of thousands of people, and we see lots of business plans, some succeed and some fail. I think that, first of all, you should ask yourself, are you really emotionally and philosophically capable of starting a business from scratch, enduring all the pain, letting your friends go when they don't work out, and creating wealth? And the second thing is, does your model add value? Whatever you're doing, does it add value, whether it's a product or a service of a business model? I would say the number one question that new businesses fail is when we ask them, what's different about you? Where is the differentiator? And when they stare back at you, which happens a lot, then we know that these people don't have a clue. Now, the reason I took time, and thank you for that, to talk about banking, if I asked you to pick a business that's hard to change or couldn't change, most of you would say banking would be near the top of the list. But it does show you with a different view of life how you can change even a large, staid business like that. But we looked at how we change the experience and add value. And as I said earlier, there's no better example than Apple. They had 5% of the market, and they were going broke. And Jobs said, this is what we want to happen. These are want our new products to be, and he made it happen. And the other, I don't want to monopolize the time, is successful entrepreneurs start with the end result, not the process to get there. There is a process, but it's what the end result to be. And I particularly see that in Britain, where you're more process-oriented. Well, let's have a bunch of meetings, let's have a plan, let's look at all the problems. The American culture is a little more, you might call it the wild, wild west culture. Let's go try it, and we'll work out the problems along the way. Particularly in the banking business where they like to overplan everything. But in the end, it comes about you personally, and have you or will you along the path learn to add value. If you learn to add value, you can make money. If you're me too, we don't need you.
And Vernon, you said about Steve Jobs and how Apple, reached its nadir. I mean, I want to probe this. What's the most difficult moment for you as?
Yeah, I really didn't have any like Jobs. I didn't have any failure. But when we started this model in America, which is completely different than the American banking model, you have to take years and years of the press, the analysts saying this won't work, your model won't work. I mean, I went through 15 or 20 years of this won't work. When Commerce went to Manhattan, you were probably there in 2001, the press said, how can this little hick bank from New Jersey succeed against Chase? So I think having a thick skin, as this lady said, is very important. They are going to call you every name. They're going to attack you. Your friends are going to tell you you're all wrong. You just have to believe in what you're doing. I mean, they called Steve Jobs every name known to man, and a few they invented just for him. Okay? And when your company gets size and your stock gets floated, then you walk into a whole different world where you're attacked every hour of every day by someone trying to short your stock. And I know you folks aren't at that level yet. Hopefully you'll get to it. But you just have to believe in what you're doing, because 99% of the people don't believe in what you're doing. When we started this Metro Bank process in Britain, oh, you can't do it. What's a new bank? The Brits won't switch. And it went on and on and on and on. None of that was true. None of that was true. Everything that our model produced in Manhattan is producing it at even a more rapid growth rate here in Britain, because we had a successful model and we broke the rules.
Okay. Let's back to the question on secrets of success, and I'm interested also, what's been the most difficult moment for you, Emma?
I'd like to pick up on something that Vernon said. My business is much more home counties than Wild West, rather sadly for me. But when Vernon said that you will have to go through some really tough times, he is absolutely not kidding. But don't feel too discouraged about that, because I remember early on, someone more grown up and experienced than me took me out to dinner to quiz me a bit, and he said, this is going to get really ugly. If you can make this, this is starting to work, have you got what it takes? Will you be hard enough? And I thought, no. Definitely not. I lied and said, yes, of course, thinking, Christ, I hope I never have to find out. And when the time came, and then it came again and again, the weird thing is you find out you really care about your business and you will do anything. You change. I changed a lot. I got much, much tougher.
And the hardest thing for you was one day it was time for the checks to go out to pay your people and you didn't have any money, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to happen to everybody.
Yeah. So if you might not feel like the Lone Ranger yet, but you probably got him in you. I think that was really important for me to realise, that I didn't think I probably did have the toughness, but it turned out I did.
And all your friends said you couldn't make it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I was very, very carefully and thoroughly advised to stop trading by accountants, bank managers, godfathers. Stop. This is a disaster and you're going to get into frightful trouble. Fine, I'll sort it out.
There we are, thank you. And we're very glad you did. Tim?
My two pieces would be about other people, actually. Firstly, although Lone Ranger is incredibly important, having that determination to succeed and the power of your will to overcome obstacles, I think there's a huge value in mentors and advisors, people who can help you mitigate against some of the risks that you don't even know are coming around the corner. The big thing for me was that I started out and thought I knew as much as I needed to know, and your realisation is that you don't know what you don't know. And if you have a wise head behind you, I was once told, find a wise grey-haired individual to help you, and they'll help save some of the issues. The other thing is about the power of the people that you have around you in terms of your team, the people who will support you in taking that forward, because I think everybody on the panel has explored a vision that they had at one point in time, which was their blind focus. But the reality is, I'm sure everybody will sit on the panel and also say that they're incredibly supported by some brilliant people who work around them at the same time. And for me, I know I have incredible people who manage aspects of my business, which I know what they're doing, but I know they do it better than I do. Because actually the duplication of effort that comes from a really good team supporting you is incredibly invaluable. What I tend to find from lots of the businesses that we work with, they start out being a spider. They start out being a spider in the middle of a web, and they get a little tweak here, something wrong with finance, and they run over in that direction. A little tweak over here, something wrong with the computer system, and they run over in that direction. And until they learn to get resources, or they can afford to get resources, whether by, as I did, giving people free meals at lunch when I couldn't afford to pay them, to come in and create a level where they can duplicate their effort, it becomes very difficult to get that scale and growth. So it's great to be the Lone Ranger at the beginning, start out the force of will, but as quickly as possible find people to support you, because that's where real growth comes from.
Okay, thanks. We've got a question here for, I think it's particularly aimed at Lara, because you were talking about holding on to all the equity of Pacific Direct and building a great team around you. But the question here from via Twitter is what about right at the beginning when you've got very little money and you can't offer great salaries to people? How do you bring in that talent?
I worked on my own for 2 years, morning, noon, night, and I found another time of the day what appeared to fit in some more stuff as well. So I didn't sleep very much. And my early days recruitment wasn't exactly traditional. I went for a hockey player who was just about as gobby as I was on the hockey pitch and employed her in sales, even though actually I was rubbish at operations. I doubled my sales team. So in terms of me attracting people, I found somebody in my case who I knew had the ability, and I could teach her the skills, exactly like you were saying. It was about the character to fit the slot that we needed. And in my case, then I built a team by, I guess, offering flexibility. We had a very family-first approach. People get very fed up being treated like a corporate number. So when I used to meet everybody at Pacific who was recruited by us, I used to work my backside off to be the first person that they had an hour with on their first day to say, here is my culture, here are my values. We're a bit mad. We do it like this. We will get our ounce of flesh. You'll work harder than you've ever worked before. We'll teach you more than you've ever could possibly believe. You can ask for anything and everything, and we'll do the best that we can to give it to you. In return, I want your honesty. I want you to work really hard. I want you to bring lots of great ideas. I want you to be a voice for continual improvement, because I'll listen to your voice. And I'll pay you in ridiculous things like cash, which is market rate, and if I can pay you over, I'll reward you accordingly if it's the team effort that works and that grows. And then I'll bribe you with things like jelly tots or alcohol or whatever rows your boat. Because actually, I think there's a huge misconception that people just work for money. And I can tell you, I know for a fact that you can employ brilliance by being a little bit canny and by putting family first. There are some brilliant flexibilities that we can offer today to all parts of society, and people can work from home. Why do salespeople have to turn up at 8 in the morning? I had a salesperson who was a guy who lost his wife. She died of cancer aged, I think, 27, and he was a great salesperson, but he wanted to be a dad to his parents. So we said to Barry, if you turn up at 9:30 when you've dropped off the kids and you want to leave at 3 so you can pick them up and you can sell, we'll just change your target. And Barry's still with Pacific today. So I would just say we need to be creative as employers, and there's a lot you can do. And the Sweetie Shop has an awful lot of stuff, and most people have some kind of weakness.
Thank you. There's quite a few questions here actually about people who are talking about, someone saying, yeah, I've got a great idea but no capital, which I think is sort of on that theme as well of how making something out of nothing. Emma, have you got any thoughts on that?
Looking back, I'm not quite sure how you do juggle it together at the beginning, but you just do. You're determined. I found credit terms in Stoke that meant that if I really pushed it and delivered it instantly myself, the minute it was ready and chase that invoice, deliver the invoice with it, and I made them pay me in a desperate hurry, and I could just, to begin with, it was hand to mouth and desperation a lot of the time. I think, I don't know, determination.
Yeah.
You do find a way.
Yeah.
Exactly as Lara says, there's ways around it. And, yeah.
Yeah. Tim?
I kind of don't agree with this making something out of nothing, because I think everything we do that has value should be paid for. So in terms of raising money, the first point of call for me was around savings, and I had the ability to go and put my flesh in, as it were, to show I was really serious about this, because I was going to put my own money in and support it. That's not always possible for people. So then it's about extending your sales technique to your friends and family and asking if anybody else around you is going to support and back you. And I think that's an incredible place to start as well. But for me, what isn't well known enough in this country particularly is the other routes of getting access to capital. Now, I sit on the London Business Angel group based in London, and also work with a number of organisations that represent family trusts and others. And there was an incredible amount of wealth in this country, actually. And there was a lot of people who are saying they can't find the right business ideas to actually invest into. There's an awful lot of cynicisms around the quality of ideas coming through. So on one hand, I'm meeting lots of people with lots of access to wealth. And on the other hand, I'm meeting lots of people who have great ideas. And what I'm seeing that's missing is this connecting of the two places, because I feel with your next idea, which you've probably created, there may be an opportunity that somebody in this audience could also have a great idea, and in order to create wealth, the two of you could work together. But it's about finding people who have access to that wealth and who have the great ideas, and creating this forum where they can have the conversation. So I think there is actual money out there, and the starting point shouldn't always be to start from absolutely nothing, because actually it can accelerate if you can find support quickly.
Okay. Vernon, people in the UK sort of look at the US as a place where, a land of opportunity, and part of that in starting up businesses is maybe easier to get capital or whatever. Would you say that is...
Before I answer that, and don't let me forget that question, I want to give one message to all of you about creating your business. Hope is not a plan. And what I hear more than anything else, whether it's my own businesses or as we lend money in the banks on a very large scale to businesses large and small, they come in with a plan which has the word hope in it. And when people ask us for money, as either investment or as a bank, if they get past the first stage, we say, give us your plan. Give us your business plan. Show us your model. Show us what's different. And show us numbers that make sense. 90% of the people don't have a plan that makes sense. They have hope. So all of you want to be entrepreneurs, get past the hope stage and thinking about a differentiator and financials that make sense. Now, is it easier to raise capital in America than here? I think most of the businesses that this group would start at a small scale. And you don't raise business capital for small businesses from banks or investment houses. It's friends and family, and you grow it from there. And once you get started and you get a little rolling, convincing people to invest money in you is just as important as selling your product. And if you don't have a differentiated story and numbers that make sense, and you can't convince people to help you raise money or help you contribute money at the appropriate level, you failed. You failed. So the ability to raise money is as critical as the ability to do this business. If you can't raise money, guys, you fail. So what is it about you that enables you to raise money? And what is it about you that enables you not to raise money? A funny thing in Britain, you asked me about capital. In America, we have a government program called the Small Business Lending Program, and it's a giant program. It's very helpful for lending to small businesses that don't qualify for bank credit. So they have a similar program in Britain called the EFG program. It's on a smaller scale. But the program does not allow the borrower to give us a charge on their house to secure the loan. 99% of you, when you borrow money, the only asset you have is your house. And there's this philosophy here, oh, we want them to start a business, we want them to take risks, but oh my God, we can't put their house at risk. Well, that's not the way it works in life. You're either all in or you're out.
Okay. Well,
Right, ladies?
Absolutely. I've bet the farm several times.
Exactly.
You will not escape that. And it's very, very true that the first port of call will, for most of us, be friends and family. And in a way, there's nothing scarier and hairier than that. Oh, absolutely terrifying. And you kind of, you win your spurs, you learn. And, if earlier on Tim was talking about mentors. That advice early on is crucial, and people are incredibly generous, I have found. They really will put out for you. But it's as well to have to jump through those hoops at the beginning.
mm. So
Sorry.
So it's showing that you've got to take the risk. Is it about putting your house online? Everything is.
See, you've got to show commitment. How can I expect somebody to give me some money if I haven't put any of my own money in? Is the way I look at it. And if I honestly believe in the product or service I'm delivering, then I would put it, because the risk for me is putting aside some money now to get some cash flows in the future from something else that I'm risking. That's a simple thing. Exactly. That's exactly it. So I don't mind putting something aside now because I'm going to get something in the future. The annoyance is, as was alluded to by Vernon, is that there's this hope that people will just give you money through because you're charismatic and you really got a great idea. But if I can't see you're committed to it, why should I be?
Well, let me explain
at the same
to you in
time?
very simple banking business, and this was very common here before the crash in '08. Geez, lend me some money to start my business, but I'm not going to personally guarantee the loan. And it was very common here. Let me see if I got this right. You want the bank to take the risk, but you don't want to take any risk. Well, that's the end of the loan discussion. We're not talking anymore. And this idea that you can start a business, try to create wealth, and not risk things is a dream.
Okay. Can we take some questions from the audience here?
Just
down
while
here,
it's
this lady.
just while it's happening, we know now from the Product Merlin experience that small businesses do find it difficult to get access to banking finance. So we have to be aware of different routes to doing it. And we should be clubbing together, finding other resources, and putting our own money to create some wealth in the future. Sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, but hang on, just equally, there's a lot of rubbish being presented to intelligent people with money because people think that a half-decent business plan is going to get funded. And the truth is you're in a competitive set, and there are a lot of people who will give you really great advice on a business plan, and frankly, I get pretty fed up with seeing extremely mediocre rubbish and people asking for cash. Well,
And that's being kind to them.
Yeah, I was going to be a lot ruder, but, I usually am, but I'm, New York and all the rest of it. But, I mean, it's ridiculous. It has to stop. You have to be proud of what you present. You're going to ask people for money they have hard earned. It's not a damn charity, and they want a return. And the first thing they're going to want to know is, A, what you're going to spend it on, and B, how you're going to get it back.
With profit.
Interest.
Yeah. Like this lady here.
Hi, my name's Bella. My company's Railroad.com. And I have a question for Vernon. Because I totally believe what you were talking about, brands and differentiating yourself to add value and be different. But I have a question for new businesses and business startups that don't have experience in branding. Because when I made a decision to start my company, before I did anything, I took a blank sheet of paper and I wrote a brand strategy. But I had the marketing experience and I had the drive to do that. But what advice do you give to new businesses, anybody going to business, who don't have experience in branding, no marketing experience, and no finance? What advice
They
would you give them?
They shouldn't go into business. It's
I
obvious.
totally
You said
agree.
the answer. You said the answer. And what does your firm do?
My company is called Railroad.com. There are divisions under Railroad. We have Railroad Image, we have Railroad Right, we
What do
have
you do?
Railroad Fans.
What do you do?
We do image consultancy. I have a business networking division.
And how are you different from the other people in the
Well,
market?
the way that I wanted to set myself aside is that my brand is focused on inspiration and motivation and success. And I went to great lengths to promote myself like that, so that each person that meets me and each of my business subsidiaries continue with that same format, that we inspire and motivate. And that's the first thing that everybody remembers me about.
Okay. Lara, did you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I didn't know anything about anything. I was 23. And the most inexpensive development you can do today is you can buy a book. Right? So every time I knew I was absolutely out of my depth yet again, I'd buy a book on marketing, even on sales. Because I like sales, they were the easy books. But, you know, I read some really boring stuff on finance. It's still priceless. Or I went to a very simplistic course that may have treated me like the idiot I truly was. But all of that would have been rubbish had I not applied it. And I see lots of entrepreneurs going to lots of stuff, and they're still running very mediocre businesses because they don't set a mission to apply what they learn and do it. And genuinely, there's no excuse. It's out there. There's more information out there than you can possibly dream of, and you don't need anything more than a tenner to buy a book. So you can do it.
There we are. You can do it. There's no excuse. Next question. Up is a man there, or a lady there at the back there.
Thank you. Hello, Zandra Johnson, Fairy Tale Furniture. Is there any part of your business that you absolutely hate, and how do you cope with it?
What does your firm do?
I design furniture specifically for children to play with and have fun with, and each piece has its own illustrated storybook.
And how big's your firm?
My firm is a micro company. It's been going 3 years.
So your question is, are there things we don't like?
That you don't
Is there
like
anything
Vernon?
within your...
Well, I'm sure we all have stories, but I have to deal with the government every day on everything.
Okay. Well, that's pretty specific. There we are.
Not a problem I have yet.
Emma?
No, I can't think of anything at the moment.
Being brutal, I hated the financial side of the business, but you have to do it. And actually, we haven't made the point strongly enough, even though we've talked about funding. You cannot run a business without understanding the basics of finance from the absolute outset, and nor can you ever let go of that responsibility in totality. It doesn't mean you do it. It doesn't mean you fill in the boxes or you cash the checks. But you need to know where your money is. And if you don't, then genuinely do not start a business.
And she's 100% right. I see businesses fail all the time as a banker, and the person that owns the business or the CEO comes in and says, I don't really know the numbers, and the CFO told me, and it turned out to be true, and we lost a horse. I mean, they got a million stories. When you own your business, you are the CFO of your business. And if you don't know the numbers, and if you know how the numbers work, you're not going to make it.
And maybe the question changed a little bit. If you, the thing you find, most difficult or hard about your business, what do you do about that bit?
Well, get advice, buy a book, go to a library, borrow a book. You can't.
The British Library.
Idea. I think it's worth saying more about accounts, in that it was something that I hoped I'd never have to think about very much. Of course, that didn't last very long. And you absolutely sink or swim on the quality of the information. You can't manage a business unless you've got very good accounts. You have to fight and fight and fight to make accounts that tell you the things you need to know. I really hated that. And it was quite a struggle.
Yeah. Tim?
See, at the Bright Ideas Trust, we teach our young people to love their numbers, because it teaches you about the levers of your business to make sensible decisions, not emotional ones, but sensible decisions about your business. So we love the numbers at our businesses. The thing I hate most is employing people who don't have the same passion as you do. And it may start out that way, where they say the right things at interviews, etc. But managing people out of business is incredibly difficult, because it's people's lives. My whole thing around enterprise, why I think enterprise is so important, is that business is the social enterprise of the world, because it creates employment, pays taxes, does the whole thing. And I think it's an incredibly powerful pursuit. But at the same time, when you take on people into your organisation, And we have 6 people in the charity that we work for, 4 working on Sock Rush, and 5 working in the consultancy speaking business that we work. And sometimes you get bad eggs. And that's incredibly difficult on small teams, particularly in small businesses. Ladisa, the jewelry makers are here. Okay, hello. For me, it's incredibly difficult to manage bad people because I have a passion about all my businesses because I love them. I truly love them like children. But sometimes people don't always display that same thing. So that's the hardest thing for me.
Let me just say one other thing of that. One of the hardest lessons you have to learn in a small business, and while I talked about banks today, I've done lots of small businesses too. When someone you hire doesn't work, you're doing them a favor and yourself a favor by getting rid of them. You're doing them a favor as much as you're doing yourself a favor.
But it doesn't make it easier in contemplation. It is a horrible thing, isn't it? The hiring and firing, but particularly firing.
Well, it gets, over time, it gets a little easier.
Don't mind. Bring it on. Bring it on.
So the lesson is practice makes perfect, is it? We have another question here from the man. Don't forget the guy with the black T-shirt. Thanks.
It is true.
Ryan Morgan from Police Cycle. Following from that question, how do you sort of go about the recruitment process then? Like, how do you best ensure there are no bad eggs? Because we're getting to that kind of stage now. So what's the best way to circumvent potential bad eggs and ensure you get the best talent on board?
Okay, Lara.
I'm 17 years of inadequacy, but I started perfecting a better process. So genuinely, go to company shortcuts, and I have put our process online. You have to be utterly rigorous. It needs to be very systematic, to be fair. I think you have lots of tiers by levels, and you might have some other tiers. I think you need to do a culture check to be original in terms of making sure that you don't need a load of clones, but you need to make sure that people are going to get on with other people. I think it's an incredibly powerful thing to make sure that team members are recruiting for their own teams where possible, because then you are, making the fit work. I think you've got to test skills, because there's a lot of, I was going to say the wrong word there, a lot of...
Flannel.
Yeah, flannels. Great word. I must remember that. That's a much better word than my usual word. So actually, we don't, at Pacific and any business that I run, and also there's the receptionist brilliance test, which is actually our receptionist, Dawn Davis, used to give me the nod if somebody had behaved with good manners and a decent approach when they came in, because actually I believe manners maketh man. And if you can treat every person of every level with the same dignity that you expect to be treated, then you pass the first check. Then you do a maths and English test, because if you're representing a business, you need to be able to do the basics. Then you do the culture check, because we need to know if you're some knife-wielding maniac that we don't think we can work with. And then we're going to have an interview. But that's only the first stage, right? So Jack Welch used to spend 40% of his working week on recruitment and looking after culture. And I promise you, that is time well invested, because like you were saying again, get the right people on your bus. And by the way, it's not a perfect process. I still stuff it up. And actually, it is true to say that the sooner you just say to someone, we've made a mistake, it's not working, I really wish you the best of luck. And if I can do anything to help you in your future, but goodbye. There will be lots of people in this room, I guarantee you, who are sitting on someone in their company, and they know in their heart of hearts it is not delivering value, which means that that person is dragging back the potential. Make a decision, take the brave pill, it's not great, and you are right, it does get better with practice.
And all of you here that have, let's say, 5 to 10 employees, every one of you has someone in your company that shouldn't be there today, and you know who that person is.
Yeah.
So, Vernon, about the hiring side first, and what are your tips on hiring?
In Britain, I bring my dog to work here, and if my dog likes the person, that should be the best answer. But on a larger scale, in America at Commerce, we were hiring 6,000 people a year. And we were building this culture model. So, first of all, we look for people who fit our view of life and our culture. One of the cute little things we did, if they didn't smile in the first job interview, they're out. Because if they're not going to smile then, they're never going to smile. So that's one little... we were getting, as Laura said, more than half of our new recruits from people that already worked for us. That's tremendously helpful because those recruits have been recruited people who know what you stand for and know what your culture is. But particularly as you get the upper levels in a bigger company, I mean, it's not that wrong to say half of the people you hire are wrong. You're just not sure which half.
Tim?
For me, the starting point is knowing really what you want. And when we went out in the beginning, we felt we knew what we wanted, but actually, once you've interviewed, you've placed the person in post, you realise they weren't exactly what you were looking for and you weren't very clear on the brief. So the first starting point for me is being incredibly articulate about what you want and refine that down and make sure that the person on the other side of the table knows exactly what you're after as well. Because if you get that wrong, that leads to a whole heap of nonsense afterwards. So at starting point is be very, very, very clear about what you want. And as the employer, you have the power to be as clear and as succinct and direct as you want because it's your company.
Just to end this one, we all struggle with how to hire people and how to hire. I've created 340 jobs in Britain from scratch, so we've been going through that here a lot. I think we all make mistakes, we all make errors, but getting rid of the people we've made a mistake on is more important than actually hiring the right ones, because none of us are good enough to be right a high percentage of the time.
And the moves by the government to make it 2 years before tribunals are a very
Exactly,
good step for small
exactly.
business. Very good step.
Okay, a question over here, if we can get the mic over. There we are.
Thank you. I have a question for Lara. My name's Octavia Gorodim. I'm from Crash Course City. Vernon talked about the end result, and I was really interested to hear about the process you went through in terms of selling your company. If you're like me and know you want to build a profitable company and then sell it for a profit, but have never done that before in terms of the sales part, what advice would you give in terms of managing that process? Were there any key learnings you had from going through that? You mentioned you tried in 04 and then were successful in 08, because I'd love to hear that.
I mean, first of all, I don't think you build a business with the exit particularly in mind. I think you build a business to build value, and the exit will come at the time when it's right. Having failed in 2004 to sell, I learned a lot of lessons. One is stop being deluded about my own management skills and start really properly delegating and building a really powerful management machine around me in a better way. I really studied the exit process from both sides of the fence. So I used to go to M&A, mergers and acquisitions presentations to learn about acquisitions because I wanted to know what the other guys would be thinking. I think you're going to have to, it depends on the size of your business and the complexity. I mean, we were 9 companies in 9 countries, 2 factories, supplying with licensed brands, a complex deal, okay? So I think again, depending on the size of your company, you're going to have a great lawyer who has real experience and ideally in your sector. And you're going to have a good accountant, but you're also going to need an advisor to put a barrier between you and the buyers. Because some of those conversations, which by the way, in my experience, when you go into the city, they like to speak another language. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's just, that's the way it is. So you're going to have to learn their language, quantum is profit. I think it's ridiculous, but they like to and by the way, there's a huge asset at being a woman in this because they're going to treat you like an idiot. And then you just take advantage of them, behave like an idiot. I made a lot more money that way. I speak from some experience, really. And then the other thing is I think one of the best things I did is I went to Stanford and went on a course. And I learned what my BATNA was, which is the walkaway price at which, if I'm not going to get that price, I'm not selling. And then finally, I was 40 when I sold. So I have a huge advantage that I didn't need to. So I went in with a pretty clear attitude about, I know what I want. And if it doesn't work out that way, oh God, I'll just keep selling soap to luxury properties. It's not the end of the world. So massive study. Get a great team of experts around you that have been there and done that before. Learn rigorously and be really clear about the price because only you can walk away. Okay? Good luck.
And John, one other thing. Don't start a business to sell it.
Yeah, correct.
The sale, if you choose to sell it, is the result, not the mission.
Okay, great. We want to get some more questions in. So there's a lady up.
Oh, hi there. I just wanted to ask, I know Vernon touched on this with Metro Bank, but I wanted to, all the rest of the panel could just very briefly talk about how their businesses added value, just in a sort of few sentences really, and sort of what they consider to be their differentiator.
Emma?
When I started, the domestic pottery on offer just had no connection with the market. It had lost touch with the fact that we didn't have dining rooms anymore and sort of put china away with tissue paper in between it. I could see it needed to go on and off a kitchen table, in and out of a dishwasher. So I was the first person to say that. I made a very informal proposition, which makes it very easy to add to mix with other things. I think at the outset we were completely unique. We've been copied a lot. We've had a lot of design into the industry.
Sincerest form of flattery. Lara?
Sorry, the question was, what are we doing? What was we doing to add value?
Yeah.
Right. I didn't do any of that for the first 9 years. I just kept selling. So I worked out in the end. I was a bit slow, but it just shows you can survive even if you are an idiot. And then really what I did is I specialised. I found my niche, which was I serviced the hell out of luxury 5-star and higher hotels. We didn't tolerate anything except representing brilliant licensed brands. We had the privilege of representing some of the world's greatest brands like Bulgari, Penhaligon's, Floris, Elemis, Asprey. You know, Bulgari, when they approached me, I nearly crashed my car. Because, that. And the other thing is that I had the huge privilege of supplying some of the most beautiful places in the world. But to add value, we became unrelentless, if you like, in our study and our knowledge of what was happening in the global market, so that we went more informed and more knowledgeable, not just about the toiletries and the brands that we represented, but about those of the competition, so that we knew we could beat anybody hands down on providing intelligent, honest, educated advice about what was happening in the marketplace. So actually it's a very simple point of difference, I don't think enough businesses anywhere study the competition to the level that we did, almost like a religion, I suppose. And then we worked incredibly hard to beat them at every part of the game and more. And then I think also it's about constant innovation. That's my other point.
And Laura, every account she has, she stole from somebody else. It's
Yeah.
not a new niche. She went in and competed and took these accounts away from the competition. And every one of you, when you start your business, yours is a little different, you have to take the business away from somebody else. How do you add value?
Are you competing on price, though, firstly, or is it about quality and other aspects? Absolutely not. I'm a great believer that you should. I don't do margin sales. God, I hope no customers are looking at this.
Too late.
Yeah. Genuinely, it blew me sideways when I started to do the proper maths in my business about how much we could make. So the great instigator of my success was I looked at what Molton Brown were doing. They were selling a 30ml bottle for 34p. And I was selling a 30ml bottle at 15 or 14p because it wasn't a brand. So I then started licensing brands, and I thought, oh, sod it, I've got better brands than them, so I'll charge 37p. And then I thought, well, I've got Bulgari, so I'll charge $1.35. And people paid it. So it's what the customer will pay. It's not what margin you make. Please remember that.
Price is an interesting one to compete on because there'll always be someone who can do it cheaper, even if they do it at a loss just to get rid of you. And there's a lot of big companies who want to get rid of people wanting to take a piece of their pie. Socks company, we do it cheaper than anybody else, and we distribute a subscription-based model all across around the world. But our Ideas Trust, we invest more than any other charity in young people 16 to 30, and we provide the only package of support which gives free consultancy from some of the biggest brands in the country, including WPP, Accenture, Ernst & Young and others. And the Speakers Agency, we have exclusive access to people who have been on television and sold their soul to the television devil like myself. So in terms of all of those propositions, we do something either quicker, better or cheaper than anybody else in the market sector we are. So we're very, very, very clear about adding value because that's what makes sure my wife doesn't kick me out of my house.
It's hard to find companies that have created very long-term value by competing on price. Yep. There's always somebody cheaper. Yep. And if your only differentiator is price, you got a very hard road. Apple is the highest priced product out there in their segment. And when you guys go out to buy your iPhones, nobody's complaining about the price.
Okay. Gentleman here at the tie.
I thought it was appropriate, seeing as we're at the British Library, that nobody has said much about protection of intellectual property. And in the UK here, we have some fantastic young people with great ideas, great designs. And I think probably, thinking about the panel, it's probably most relevant for Emma. I don't know if you copyrighted or protected many of your designs. And it was referred to, a lot of that has been copied. So I just wondered if any of the panel had any particular advice for entrepreneurs here who have got intellectual property that they might want to protect.
This is really hard. We've spent shed loads of money trying to protect our copyright to no avail. It can't be done. So relax and believe in yourself. Make sure that what you're doing is special, is the line that we've had perforce to take. I could send myself straight down a hole if we got to really minding about it. Luckily, early on, we got into a fight with Marks and Spencer, and the QC who advised us put it absolutely straight for me that you cannot afford to do this. The risks are much too great, and they will wipe the floor with you. And most judges would, even though actually it's probably quite likely that they have infringed your copyright, they have copied your design. It's a subjective business. So we backed away from it then, and we've stayed really away from it. We've tried to secure it. I hate to say this out loud. I don't think it's possible. We're as good and as strong as our next new design. And you've got to be able to... We've built the company to distribute what we do effectively. There's a very horrible time at the beginning when you put something out there and everyone goes, oh my God, that's perfect. And they can copy you much more effectively. So your brand is your best protection at that point.
And your quality.
Yes.
Your brand lives on its quality.
Absolutely.
And it's made in England. And I think there are choices that you might make over protecting what you do when it comes to product as to how you go about doing it. So, for example, there are important barriers you need to put up, and people will say, why bother getting a non-disclosure agreement? Well, it's just a good idea to put a line in the sand and say, this is mine, I'm sharing the information. It might just make somebody think twice.
Yeah, we try, yeah, but it's very hard to make it stick.
Of course it is, but...
I'd say impossible.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult.
Have another view too?
I think it can be a very costly road for people who haven't got something particularly unique, who are trying to just create a barrier for barrier's sake. I think there's definitely a process. The lovely woman who created the Anyway Cup, who's one of our entrepreneurs right here in the British Library, had a process. If Mr. Dyson didn't have a protection on it, he would never have raised the money to actually take Dyson to the heights it is now. I think if you have something unique in terms of a process or a system, then go full hog to try and to get a result. But beware, it's an incredibly expensive process, and if you can use the free resources that are here at the library, then fantastic, and that should be a great start. But if you're someone like Semel and Natasha who have a jewellery business, your quality is going to be in your protection. Is going to be in the quality of your products and actually market share.
Speed to market.
It's market share. Go out and sell. It always comes back to this one common denominator, which is about sales. When people talk about I want to be an entrepreneur, I actually say, well, you want to be a salesperson, because unless you can sell really, really quick, that's sometimes your best protection. Do not go and protect your name with a website. Do not protect your design by some designs. Go and do those simple things which can be quite cost effective to do and not too laborious a task. But in terms of protecting something worldwide and everything else, you might just want to get off the ground and start selling first and then actually take it forward.
For 60 quid, I think you can design register.
Exactly.
So that's the most basic, I'd say, entry point. But then patenting, I was learning about it again today. And, it's a steep hill for people to go, so...
And be careful of those agencies who will sell you protection as well.
Yeah.
Come to the British Library, speak to the free advisors, and they'll give you the right steer.
I think we do have to plug the British Library at this point for IP. I don't know whether the British Library wants to...
No, it's true. I'm not being sycophantic. I'm being very, very serious. I came here and used the free resources here first before wanting to go and spend lots of money to the free consultants who are allegedly not free, who are trying to give me advice.
I'm sorry, we're running down on time, and I really want to include as many questions. The guy here with the glasses is...
My name's Joel Freeman. I just have a question for the panel. I wonder if you had some advice. After spotting an opportunity It's actually taken quite a lot of time to get to market. You've seen quite a few competitors enter in that time. Do you take heart from the fact that perhaps you have found a good opportunity and they're moving in that same direction because they have spotted that same opportunity? Or do you reevaluate what you're trying to do because the marketplace might become too cluttered?
Vernon.
What is your differentiator? You got to keep saying that to you. Put it on the wall at home, on the mirror when you shave. How am I different and how am I better? Entrepreneurs don't need to be encouraged because other players in the market to validate your idea. Either you believe it or you don't. Your mother's not going to help you here.
Okay. But maybe some of the panel could. Lara?
I mean, the only thing that I would say is if the market is quite tight and there are a lot of people already in it and you don't have a key point of difference or you can't create something that is a point of difference, then reevaluate. But, you know, there are very few new ideas. There are just better services, better methods, better packaging, better distribution. I don't know many new ideas, and I'm not trying to be, ridiculous.
It's true. Okay, Tim?
If competition was bad, there'd only ever be one Butchers or one of it. So the fact that other people are doing something similar to what you've proposed is a great thing, because the world is littered with first movers who make all the mistakes for you to learn from. They also are brilliant about providing free marketing and advice about the product or service that you're trying to do. So I'm all about being in the comet trail of all of those fast runners, because then you can go forward behind them and hopefully do like what Tesco's did and take over.
Okay, another question. The guy here in the...
My name is Mo Brice. Hi. I set up a business 3 months ago. Previously, I worked for a market research company. And now I license the research that is provided by those companies and distribute it to predominantly emerging markets, so markets like Russia, Eastern Europe, and Central Asia. I'm trying to hire very good business developers and salespeople who will be able to sell the product. And this is one of the challenges that I have at the moment. I was wondering, in terms of looking at salespeople, what would be your things, the things that you would look for to get people on board?
Well, first of all, you have to be the best salesperson.
Yeah, but people who...
And when a guy says business development, that means he can't sell. That's code for he can't sell. So if you're a good salesperson, you'll be able to see another good salesperson. See if everybody agrees with me on that.
Okay. Lara?
I can't bear agreeing with you, but I do. Actually, I'd be more controversial than that. I'd also go out of my way not to employ the British, because they're generally pretty poor.
No.
that may be very difficult in this room.
You're selling an international product. That's what you said, right?
We sell market research and business intelligence.
Okay, so I hired a Singaporean in Singapore. I hired a Chinaman in China, funnily enough. Do you see my point? It's very powerful if you hire within your markets, people who know your markets. The most powerful thing you can do is actually employ the best bloke from the competition.
Tim?
Yeah. Is it worth it?
Well,
they always pay back their dividends. Salespeople should more than treble cover their cost. If they don't, they're wrong.
And your failure rate in hiring and sales is the highest category we
Absolutely.
fail at. I'm sure everybody will agree with me. There's a lot of bull going on with these guys.
They're the hardest
Their
ones.
first sale is you.
The chief executive of Autonomy does a brilliant speech about his journey, etc. And he has this great line in there about salespeople. And he says salespeople have this ability to create this fog of illusion around what they do. And they'll give you all the nonsense and rubbish in the world about why they could not sell. It was because my dog was sick. Sorry, Vernon, I shouldn't talk about dogs, but
that's fine.
It's okay. But it was because I didn't have the right marketing collateral. It was because of this. And they're great at creating this atmosphere, this illusion force field around them, which is impenetrable to most normal people. And the fact is, if you can sell your product, someone else can. And you'll spot them very clearly by the results that they bring to the table. It's pure and simple for a salesperson. And also the key test that we did with our charitable work, which is sometimes the hardest thing to sell, is that we've had only fundraisers in our organisation who are willing to get paid off commission. Because if you're that good, you'll go and make the money.
One other point, if you want to teach great salespeople to sell, and you can sell, get them to shadow you.
There we are.
Yeah,
Good advice.
And hiring good salespeople won't absolve you from selling. You will have to jump in again, and it's always got to come from you.
Okay, thanks. We've probably got time for 2 more questions. A lady at the back there. We got a mic too. Is there someone else before that? Lady there. Claire? Sorry,
Wake up.
There we are. So we'll do lady at the
My
back.
name is Carrie Gregory Hood, and it's a question for Tim. You say you pulled the plug on your male grooming business. What triggered that? Because obviously some of us face failure in our businesses, and it's good to know at what point we shouldn't go bankrupt.
It was really difficult because of the emotional investment in the first business, the money that was in it, and it came back to the numbers. It just simply came back to the numbers. In order to reach the sales targets that were lovely in our business plan, which was fantastically well written and had clear differentiation and added value beyond any measure, was the fact that we had to have over 2,000 outlets selling our products. And adding to that the margin that they were willing to take, particularly the likes of Selfridges and others, it just became unsustainable. And there's a point, I think, in everyone's journey where you can only sell so much crap to yourself before you start to think, this isn't going to work. And for me, there was 2 things that really influenced that decision. One, there was a really good advisor called Paul Humphreys, who's now my business partner in a number of other things and the co-author of my book, What's Your Bright Idea, which has all the tips and tricks that we've learnt along the way, similar to your section. Not as provocative a title, but that's probably a marketing strategy in itself. So the first point is to get the advice from somebody who's done it and say, do you know what, maybe this isn't the right thing, and to trust that. And the second thing is, I have this great theory about there's a voice that tells you the stuff before you go to sleep, and it's not because you've been smoking anything illegal. Before you go to sleep, there's a voice that says to yourself, it may not be the right thing. And your gut instinct, which pushes you in the right direction to follow something, is also the one that tells you when it might not be the right thing to take forward. And for me, I was rather going to lose £50,000 rather than £100,000.
Okay. Most businesses fail when the cash stops.
Yep.
There's no better indicator of your business plan if you've got no cash.
Right?
There we are. Yes, wise words. The lady at the back, you've been waiting patiently.
Hi, my name is Shirlene. I've just started a company called Just Performers, which is a performing arts company for young children. It's different in terms of I want to look at the young kids' well-being and also look at education within the performing arts. And I'm trying to find a business partner. I've put out adverts, I don't know, Twitter, LinkedIn, and etc. But I can't find anybody that I want that can work with me. Everybody, like you said about staff, is come on board, but it's like I'm pulling people, not they have the love. And I want to know if there's anywhere I can look or any advice.
Why do you want a business partner?
I don't know if it's fear or I don't know if I can't do it by myself.
Get a mentor. Don't give away the equity. Sod that.
You just need an advisor. You need someone to help you.
No, you don't need a partner.
Everyone gets scared. It's just part of the process.
And if that doesn't go away, I bet Emma's as scared on the bigger decisions she makes today in her business as I will always be about mine. But it's having then the guts to just do it anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Go for it. But if you really don't feel sure enough, don't go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it can only be you that decides.
And does your business going to have scale? If it's not going to have scale, if it's a small business built around you, you don't really need outside partners and capital because there's no place to go with that. So you got to say, what is my scale here?
There's nothing wrong with a lifestyle business, but just be honest about that. Just be honest about it's going to look after me and pay my bills, and that's it. But then don't fool yourself to thinking I'm going to take over the world. And there's nothing wrong with being in either camp.
Okay. We unfortunately have run out of time on this, but there will we'll be having a drink reception afterwards, and you hope to be able to collar some of the panelists here. And please remember to fill in your feedback forms. Just remember those great prizes out there. And I'd just like to, maybe we could just give a round of applause. Thanks for all our panel for the team. Thank you. Please do go through.
Just don't go anywhere for 1 minute. I do have a book. I think it's rather good. That's because I wrote it. In all seriousness, I wrote my book because I give quite a significant proportion to prostate cancer, and as always in business, there's a higher proportion of men, sadly, in the room as there are women. On the title, it says, Juggle Your Way to Success, and it's not really relevant other than to business and the fact that more men need to get tested for prostate cancer because it will save lives. And you'd rather not talk about it, you'd rather die by it. Please change your attitude and tell your friends to get tested too. Thank you.